I'm delighted now to be joined here in the SBLTV studio by a man who's been very busy today making important announcements, Mark Barrow from Shropshire Council. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
I was just having a quick look, literally 30 seconds ago on the council's website. There's been a big announcement today about the Riverside development in Shrewsbury, hasn't it? And we haven't actually had an update on this show since almost towards the end of last year, and so much water's gone under the bridge since then, hasn't it? So
yeah.
Tell us what's happened today.
Right, okay, so the big announcement today is the release of the details of who our design consultant partner is, which we're delighted to announce because they come with a huge amount of experience and expertise, and we're thrilled to now get them on board and help bring everything Riverside to life.
So you presumably have been working tirelessly behind the scenes on getting ready for all of this for, well, how long? You tell me how long it's...
Very swan-like, Carl, pedalling like fury underneath the waterline. So just give you a quick potted history because it's a little while since I brought you up to speed on this. So in November last year, we appointed Rivington Hark as our development management partners. They've been working really closely with us, bringing forward the procurement of the rest of the team, but also helping harden up the master plan. Helped considerably in January by the announcement that we won 18.7 million of levelling up funding.
Which is quite handy, isn't it?
Which was very handy. So we've gone through the process now of procuring the design consultants, and we're now in the middle of appointing the mixed engineering consultants as well. So we're going to be making an announcement about that soon too.
So is this the stage now where we're going to start seeing things happening quite thick and fast then, is it really? Because at the start, as you say, it's swan under the water, isn't it? And things people don't always see, and then suddenly the dam breaks, doesn't it? And everything starts to kick off. So.
Exactly. And the eagle-eyed amongst your viewers will have noticed we've got a planning application in for the partial demolition of the Riverside Shopping Centre too. So really delighted to see that come forward, and we'd hope to be through that this summer and start to see some demolition. And I think it's when we see that kind of physical manifestation, people will think this is happening.
They say this really is happening, don't they? Yeah, exactly. But of course, this is far more than just, as you alluded, than just the council, isn't it? There's so many partners, there's so many different cogs to this, isn't there? So, just give us an idea of the scale of it.
Well, so if we think about the whole of the Riverside area, you're almost kind of from Welshbridge to the railway station in many ways, and it's a real kind of ambitious scheme to kind of completely rejuvenate, redesign, bring that area to life. It includes the kind of gyratory around the rail station too, and that's part of what the levelling up funding will do. So it's that whole kind of quarter of town really kind of bringing it to life. And as you have just alluded to, there are a lot of people with interests in that. There are a lot of different ownerships, there are a lot of stakeholders. There's partners like Shrewsbury Business Improvement District, the Town Council, various other kind of bodies too. So hugely exciting. Because
we had a panel debate, in fact, in the studio here earlier this year about the big town plan, and it's part of that, isn't it? Well, it's a key part of that. It's a driver of that in many ways.
It is. It's at the heart of it, really, however you look at it. And the big town plan, of course, reaches across the whole of the town. But, of course, it's also the driver for things like the movement strategy for Shrewsbury. So we're in the process of completely redesigning public transport systems at the moment and thinking about how park and ride works. How do things like the car parks around the shoulder of the towns work? So this is going to come forward as a big integrated kind of piece of work, because I think that's perhaps what people don't understand. It's not just about the physical development, it's about how the whole town kind of functions. And the Riverside bit is kind of the showcase bit within the heart of it, but absolutely it plays to the whole of Shrewsbury.
And it's the perception of the town as well, isn't it? And the sort of the gateway to the town, certainly from the Riverside, entrance, isn't it? I know can be a double-edged sword in terms of some of the flooding issues that you get and wanting to protect the town a little bit, but it's a juggling act, isn't it?
It is. So there's an interesting bit here. So at the heart of everything Riverside and the town centre is this sense of how can we treat the river as an asset rather than a threat. And of course the design of Shrewsbury was always, the risk of flooding, what happens with the river, etc., etc. So we really want to embrace that and kind of open up that whole kind of Smithfield Road area into a high quality piece of river environment. That's going to be a game changer. At the heart of this, if you think about it, and people know this, there's been this change in our high streets and this kind of shift in a retail sense to much more about experience and destination. Now, Shrewsbury's a great place and it has a real pull in a visitor economy, but it's becoming much more of a significant place to kind of just spend social time and to kind of dwell and to kind of that leisure economy. So what you've seen change on the high street in terms of retail kind of changing. You've seen a massive increase in Shrewsbury on food and beverage and hospitality, for example. So this is part of a strategy which is Shrewsbury as a destination, a place to do a range of things, where a family can go in different directions. Now, that has an economic output, it has a place-shaping output, it kind of changes the way we kind of present the town to the world. So exciting in many ways, really. The flooding bit, as people will know, we're working on that in another stream, actually, and there's a lot that's going to come forward this autumn as part of a public consultation. So, really confident that we've got that in our sights as well as part of this wider programme.
How much, well, I don't know, maybe you haven't, but have you had to consider the changes in the economy, the threats, the pressures in the economy that we've still got and we're talking about this year, whether it's inflationary pressures, cost of living pressures, when you're shaping this plan compared to maybe how the economy or the predictions looked a couple of years ago when you were first putting it together? Have you had to adjust, evolve?
You always do. I mean, the only thing that's certain is nothing is certain, of course, and the cost economics of development are always changing in one way or another. But if we kind of reflect on the strategy, so go back to 2018 when the council bought the 3 retail centres, it was always clear at the time that it was wanting to manage that transition that's a mega trend really around the world of the kind of changing natures of our town centres. So think of it like this. There's about 128,000 square metres of retail space in Shrewsbury. Pride Hill Centre, for example, was 10,000. By taking Riverside and Pride Hill out, what we've done is strengthen the rest of the retail offer in the town centre. And the Darwin Centre is kind of 95% full, for example. So we don't have that visual pepper potting that a number of high streets around the country have, where it kind of looks like neglect. So Shrewsbury's really vibrant. It held up really well in footfall sense through the pandemic. We know that there's kind of a strong sense of people wanting to continue to come here. And of course, demand is everything in the world of business. So here's an interesting one. First 2 quarters of the pandemic, Shrewsbury, according to Estates Gazette, which is the go-to journal for all property professionals, Shrewsbury saw the biggest increase in office demand in the country for 2 quarters. Who'd have thought? But that's the shift that the pandemic has brought.
Do you analyse what? Are you able to boil down to actually why that happened, why that was?
It's part of that shift in terms of less dependence on city centre economy, more hybrid working, the kind of quality of life of 60% working from home. Where's the local office going to be? That kind of thing, massive opportunity. So for us, that kind of mixed economy part of this development, some office, some leisure, some food and beverage, bringing out that kind of waterside placemaking, a little bit of residential, lots and lots of exciting stuff in there.
We were chatting, I think the last time we met, we were chatting about the launch of the Shropshire Plan, and part of that is this idea of the healthy economy concept. Where are we at on that at the moment? How healthy are we, do you think?
Actually, and this is an interesting bit really, so Shropshire went into the pandemic and grew rapidly in terms of increases in unemployment, became the second highest in the East and West Midlands at one point in time. But interestingly, has now been the fastest to recover. Now, part of that was visitor economy and hospitality, tourism, etc. But our rate of recovery has been really, really strong, and we're really pleased with that. So that kind of support that we were part of through supporting businesses through the pandemic, our businesses in Shropshire have come out of that really well. We're delighted with that. The healthy economy bit is one of our central parts of the Shropshire Plan. Everything in kind of Big Town Plan and Riverside is a core part of that in and around Shrewsbury. And to kind of put that in context, there's about 45,000 jobs in and around Shrewsbury, so it's a big employment centre. So consolidating its place, consolidating the town at the heart of the county. It takes a county to make a county town. Is a really important part of it. So actually we're travelling quite optimistically, let's put it like that, about the future for Shrewsbury.
Excellent. What's the biggest challenge at the moment, do you think?
We've just got plates spinning all over the place in a number of ways. The team working on bringing this forward are all sorts of stuff at the moment in relation to, I've mentioned kind of flooding and working with the Environment Agency there. There's all sorts of planning issues to address. There's the cost economics and engaging with developers and occupiers in the background. There is a lot of multiple streams of work going on in that sense. The other bit is, as a council, this isn't just about us. This is a bit about working with partners, making sure everybody is part of this, because it's a cliche, but the journey is part of the strategy. Everybody needs to come along on this, and we want that kind of, whole-scale community support. So lots and lots of kind of activity in all sorts of ways, supporting what we're trying to achieve.
And bringing things then back sort of full circle to the Riverside development, I guess one of the dilemmas or the juggling acts you've got is you've got a lot of people who are already in and around the area which is being developed. You've also got people that you're wanting to court and get them interested in coming into Shrewsbury maybe for the first time to be involved in what the future is. And you've got to keep both of these kind of parties happy, haven't you?
You have, yeah. So of course, omelets and eggs in the middle of this. There will be a phase of demolition. There will be a big kind of programme of change. And and things like, for example, when we get to it, the demolition of Raven Meadows car park, all of those things are part of this kind of programme that we're working on at the moment and will affect people in different ways. So there is lots to kind of work through. As you say, there's this thing about local business versus kind of the new and who we're attracting. Positive bit here is that there's a lot of interest from people out there in the wider world about what's the opportunity in Shrewsbury. They see it. And it's helped by quite regularly Shrewsbury appears in, and Shropshire generally appears in a lot of those weekend supplements as a place to go, which is great. So there's a lot of outside interest here, and the occupiers as well as developers we talk to really get that. So great. One of the interesting bits here for local businesses, we talk a lot about the Shropshire Pound. So how is this, as a project and a programme, going to create a positive impact on the Shropshire Pound for local businesses too? And that's something that we really want to make sure is a core part of it.
And sometimes you have to actually sit down and consider the things you probably forget about, don't you, in terms of once you get somebody into a town centre. It's not just what they go and do when they hand their money over in the shop that's newly relocated in the centre. There's so many other strands, there's so many other businesses that you're supporting, isn't there?
There is.
Public transport operators, cafes, restaurants,
There
they
is.
go on their way there, on their way back, childcare, there's all sorts, isn't there? So
Yeah, there is actually. And it's an interesting kind of piece, that, because I talk a lot about how we curate the town centre. There's a sense of almost managing it as a place. If we're talking about it as like, say, a visitor destination, you manage it like you would manage it almost like a theme park. The quality of the experience starts when they plan their journey. How easy is it to book tickets? How easy is it to park your car? What's the wayfinding like when you get there? Is it clean? Does it look well maintained? It's the whole experience that's important to people.
absolutely, and that's, as you say, that brings you back to the plate juggling, doesn't it? So are you able to pin down a timeline at the moment then, in terms of when we're going to start physically seeing things connected to the Riverside then?
So we hope to be through that planning process on that demolition this summer. So we hope by the end of this year to start to see some physical work take place. So I think that's the key thing to look out for next in terms of physical stuff. There's a whole programme of engagement and consultation going on. And we've got some consultants working with us to kind of bring that forward. So the visibility of all of this to the community is going to be much greater as well.
And that's when you're able to stand up and say to people, look, this is what we've been doing all of these months. We've been telling you it's been going on now. You can actually see it. So is that the bit where you're actually excited or relieved, or a combination of both?
You just moved to the next stage of excitement and relief. It's an interesting thing, that I think that kind of sense of when people get it and they can see it happening, the confidence grows, and confidence breeds confidence, and that just makes delivery that much bit easier. And you're kind of not having to then wrestle with the questions like, well, why are you doing this? Because people get it. I think the other bit to stress there is, Shrewsbury is a jewel, isn't it? Its town centre is a precious thing. So what we want to do is make sure that everything is complementary to what we've got that's good. And we really want to make sure people don't see this as kind of a threat to that kind of quality of place. I grew up in Shrewsbury. This is really important. I get the personal bit locally. There's something here about the legacy that we leave, because this will set in place the shape of Shrewsbury for, some generations to come. It's a really important opportunity that we want to engage everybody in kind of owning, if you like, what future Shrewsbury looks like.
And as you say, the image, the atmosphere,
Exactly.
the ambience of a place is crucial, isn't it? Something you can't actually write down on paper, but it exists, and you don't want anything to upset the equilibrium with that, do you?
Yeah, well, I don't want social media in 20 or 30 years' time saying, what did that Mark Barrow do?
I don't want social media in 10 or 20 years' time, I think. I'll leave it at that, to be honest. No, exactly. But what you do want is people to be looking back in hindsight and be able to say, yeah, that's why they did that.
Yeah.
And look at this, and this is still here.
Exactly.
And yeah, excellent. Well, it sounds like we're going to need to have you back in here at the start of our next series, aren't we, to see what else is going on.
More than happy.
Great to see you, and thank you for finding time on a busy day, I know, of PR announcements. And thank you, Mark Barrow, Shropshire
Pleasure.
Council.
Thank